Best of R / malicious compliance episode 35. Long time lurker here. Finally got a nice story to tell that happened yesterday. Some backstory. In university, me and two of my friends decided to rent a flat together. When we were living there for 1 year, I met my girlfriend and she came to our place quite often. After another year or so, she finally moved in with us, paying her part of the rent. One of my friends was a great roommate, always kept the shared areas clean, wasn't too loud and always helped out with stuff. However, the other roommate was of the kind that made you want to never live in a shared flat again. Smoking weed and probably doing some drugs in his room, making a lot of mess without cleaning it up and so on. Let's call him Alex. Now on to the story. So after nice roommate finished university, we didn't want to live alone with Alex cause we constantly had to clean up after him. We found another place and everyone moved out. He didn't even help us renovating the place to get the deposit back and we had to throw away his old furniture and stuff he didn't want to take with him. After moving out we had to do some late payments for heating, water and running costs, in total a bill of €1,050. These payments were for the year where GF was not living there yet, so I paid the bill and told everyone I'd get 1/3 of the bill, so €350. Next couple of minutes I get a text from Alex. Alex, don't we have to divide it by 4? You forgot GF. Me, the bill is from 2018 where GF wasn't living with us, so only the 3 of us have to pay it. Alex, but that's not fair at all. She was at our place constantly, using water and electricity so it's her job to pay for it too. Me, if you really want a fair payment I can calculate a price for everyone by looking up how much they used. Alex, well if you take her into account, that's fine for me. He wants payments to be fair. Time for malicious compliance. In winter, he was always smoking with his window open while having the heater fully turned on. He generally never closed his window and sometimes left it open when he left our place. Because he wasn't helping at renovating the place, he wasn't present when our landlord reviewed the renovations. The landlord was also reading the consumption of each room's heater. To no surprise, his room's number was extremely high. Even the landlord made a remark about it being far from normal for such a small room. In our bill, the consumption was listed too. From the total of €1,050 I calculated the proportion of heating costs. All other costs were separated by 4. From the heating costs, I subtracted the costs of the common areas and divided them by 4. 2. Then, I calculated the costs of every room we individually used. Because Alex caused around 45% of all heating costs alone, he should pay 45% of all heating cost if our payments should be fair. So I showed my calculation in our group chat and the new share of the bill everyone had to pay. Now, Alex had to pay €380, €30 more than before, while nice roommate had to pay significantly less. Alex just responded with that's okay. TL. Doctor, roommate thinks his share of our bill is unfair, so I calculate his fair share based on his heat consumption and in the end he has to pay more. Thank you. Next. It's a story from when I was working for a pretty big shop in the DIY segment. We had all kinds of stuff, from wood to plumbage to flowers. I was working for the storage unit of the place, along with some more guys, but our staff was utterly lacking. We had to unload incoming traffic, deal with the documents, deal with reclamations and bunch of stuff. The most important, however, was that we had to check if all the goods were fine to sell and there were no discrepancy with the documents. So one Friday, which are usually the most busy days, there is an abundance of incoming trucks. The storage unit is overflowing with everything. Everyone is almost running, trying to sort this crap and send it to the trading area to be shelved. By the way, we only had 3 computers available to scan everything so the program would recognize it and put on stock. Manual input is strictly prohibited, so no one in the office area of our unit can't do anything but to work with documents. So the 3 of us waltzing through the shipments are doing our best to be as fast and efficient as possible. Of course, we do neglect some of the instructions for the sake of it. For example, if we know that one of the suppliers only ships packs of 10, we don't bother opening and counting all of them. We just count boxes. Then our boss marches in. Boss, what are you doing there? Are you sure? There's 10 pieces in this box. Are you sure they're not damaged? Me, not the best speaker ever. Yeah, the boxes are sealed and not damaged. So, boss, interrupting. Do you know what your job is? You have to open them and see it for yourself. I skeptically look around and proceed. We have kind of an emergency. We really have to work quick or else we'll be buried under this avalanche. Boss, quality is more important, so do you job properly. Now. Well, okay. Hijinks will ensue. I quickly wrap up my current task and take the next pallet, picking a especially tedious one, with nails and all that jazz. I unwrap it, cut the first box open and start scanning. Normally you scan one and enter the total in the corresponding place. Well, not this time. I scan everything one by one. Every single package. Even those, which are easy to count manually. After 2 hours I was nowhere near the finish, when my co-workers finally dropped a word of my behavior to our boss. He finally shows up. Boss, what are you doing? What takes you so long? Others finished 5 suppliers each, and you're still struggling with that one? Me, innocently blinking. What? I'm doing my job as was stated in my instructions. I check the quality and scan everything. By the way, do we have scales here? I'm not sure if this box has exactly 5 kilograms of nails. By the end of my speech the boss is red with anger, starts yelling at me and says me to work quicker, even if it means skipping some steps, which is, as you can remember, is the first thing he told me not to do. And thus I got my nerves a bit pulled, but then no one ever complained about this issue. Thank you. Next. I work in a factory and we have our year-end inventory coming up. My current boss was pushed into the role and is a lazy boss with terrible communication skills. He constantly takes personal phone calls and does not write up work orders for us. Complains we do not do any work when he actively keeps us from doing the work. He has wanted me to get a head start on the inventory, so I have been tasked with doing inventory on a cabinet full of items. This cabinet is full of odds and ends that have never been inventoried before. Reason being is that it is just not worth the effort for these low cost items. Issue is that I have no idea what the majority of the items are, as they are not labeled. They are from before I started here, 6 years ago, but new boss is set on giving me the task. I asked how he wanted me to document items because don't know what they are called, don't know what machine they go to. He just told me to label everything as I go with a description. I am still working at it currently, but I am labeling every single item individually. Every nut and bolt. All of it. You know, so we know what we have. Thank you. Next. Many years ago I worked as a maintenance technician on an automated assembly line. It was my job to perform quality audits throughout the section of the line where I worked. If something didn't pass inspection, then I would put the product on hold and test additional samples. Whenever this further tests failed, I would stop production, notify the lead or supervisor, and then troubleshoot and repair the machine in question. For a few years I worked the night shift. The night shift supervisor, who I will call TD Gray, had a habit of vanishing for most of the night. He would be around at the start of the shift. We worked 12-hour shifts, and then he would show up after the morning meeting and maybe dawdle about the office until the end of the shift. As I was doing my audits one night, I found a machine that was drifting out of spec. I shut it down and paged Mr. Gray, but he didn't respond. I found the issue causing the quality failure and got the parts required for the repair. The repair took about an hour, followed by testing of 100% of the product for a few minutes. Meanwhile, TD Gray returned from the morning meeting. He was angry and walked straight up to me and asked to authorize me to shut down his machine. I tried to explain that it had failed an audit and that I was just following procedure. TD wasn't interested in anything I had to say. Apparently during the morning meeting he reported that our area was running with no issues. An engineer who would walk our area each morning contradicted him and said that the technician had one of the machines down for an hour and was just now releasing it to production. TD gave me a written warning and told me that I do not have the authority to stop production without his approval. A month or so later, a similar situation arose and I tried paging Mr. Gray, who didn't respond. I should mention that this was well before cell phones, and no, we didn't carry pagers. To page someone you had to call the reception desk and they would page them over the PA system. Since there wasn't a receptionist at night, this function was handled by a security guard. I told security to page Mr. Gray every 5 minutes until he responded. They wanted to do it every 30 minutes but I insisted on nothing less than every 10 minutes and I also wanted them to log each page. This was normal procedure but they often would just record one entry in the log regardless of how many times they repeat the page. When the engineer came in he looked at my audit sheet and asked me why I hadn't stopped production. I explained that I had been told I couldn't without Mr. Gray's approval. I also told him that security had been paying him every 10 minutes since I found the issue. The engineer stopped production and told me to begin repairs. He then got a copy of the log from security and went to the morning meeting. When TD Gray reported that all machines were running with no issues, the engineer spoke up and asked why security had been paging him every 10 minutes for over their hours. I never did find out where Mr. Gray went every night or what he did but he soon had more time to do whatever it was. Thank you. Next. My boss is just under retirement age and cannot work a computer, write an email. He can't do basically anything with technology. Half my job is writing up emails and documents and things for him. Things that any non-technologically impaired person can easily do. One thing I do for him is write up quotations and send them off with his approval. One thing you should know about my boss is English is not his first language, though he came to my English-speaking country as a young child and learned it early. However, his spelling and grammar are a disaster, truly tragic. He handwrites out his quotes and I type them up, get approval, and send them off. I spend a lot of time clarifying things with him because his handwriting is also somewhat illegible. But worse than that, his spelling and grammar are so poor half of his sentences make no sense and some words are spelled so incorrectly I simply cannot figure out what they say. So one day I'm typing up a particularly poorly written quote, and he's in a bad mood, rough morning or something, I guess, and getting snippy because I had to interrupt his work every couple of minutes to clarify what this word was or what this sentence was trying to get across. After several interruptions, he finally snaps and tells me I don't have time for this, just type it up exactly as is. I of course go exactly as is, because there are a few, as I try to warn him it's half gibberish and basically needs to be rewritten, and he cuts me off and says yes, as is, and shoos me away. Okay, I can do that. I type it up, print off a copy and leave it on his desk for approval. Later in the day, he asks if I'd sent out the quote. I say no, because I am never supposed to send quotes without approval from him first and he had not told me to send it out. He says the client is waiting on this quote, send it out already. He obviously hardly glanced over the copy I left for him, probably just to check that the prices were correct, before approving. Or he actually read it thoroughly and thought it was proper English. I don't know, because that quote was a mess. Truly. So I send it out. As trained, I send out quotes from his email. As he creates the quotes he wants them coming from him. As well, we use a quote template that has his name and signature on it already to show the quote is created by him. So by any account, people have always thought he does all the work on his own quotes, and any digital record would tell you the same. Roughly a half hour later, I hear him get a call. His office is close by my desk, from the client who received that abomination of a quote. I couldn't catch every word, but the gist was what the hell is this? I can't make sense of it and ended with I can't work with anyone who can't even f-king proofread, so my boss is pissed, calls me over and asks what the hell happened. I innocently say I don't know what that guy's problem is. I typed it up exactly as he wrote it, and show him a few lines from his written copy and my typed copy that matched exactly. He had final say and he approved the quote to send out, and knew this. So he had nothing much to say but mumbled something about needing to look things over closer next time. I know someone will call me an asshole or unprofessional for not at least somewhat fixing it, but my job is technically to type up his quotes and send them out once approved. I'm not his editor. And honestly, without his clarification, I genuinely couldn't fix most of it because it wasn't understandable. I also very genuinely didn't gaff because I was so checked out of that job after poor treatment. So when he very rudely made it clear he wanted it sent out exactly as is, that's exactly what I did. Thank you. Next. I worked as a tech support at one of my country's top ISP. We had the shortest answering time out of all ISPs. You would get transferred to a customer support agent within 2 minutes, have your problem resolved quickly, while rest of the ISPs always well above 15 minutes of waiting and just subpar service. So safe to say, we were the best choice back then. This is relevant at the end. Have been working there for more than 3 years, and let me tell you, the company got worse every year. Basically it went from me being genuinely happy to work there, despite it being a minimum wage job, doing 60+ hours every week, all down to barely 22 hours per week. Add to that the severe depression I got from working there, but I digress. One of many stories. This one happened at my last year of working there. At this point I'm very proficient. One evening shift I received a call from a client, calling us again that he had a recurring problem that I knew very well because I have been hearing about this certain problem for about half a year now, if not more. And yes, we let our seniors, managers and shift managers and above know about it ASAP every time that problem reappeared. But all we were instructed to say is some another BS excuse. Suffice to say we're fed up. Simply explaining the problem was that only our customers experienced severe lag, low download speeds and high latency in games that makes online games impossible to play. I'm talking from 200 megabits per second all the way down to 10 or 30 megabits per second at best case scenario. Imagine YouTube's homepage loads after like 20 seconds. It's important to mention that in my country the ISPs and the infrastructure are all different companies. Meaning if you have a problem with the physical part, like your router/line is down/someone cut your cables and whatnot, you had to call your infrastructure. If you had a problem with low speed/lag/computer/internet browser is slow, or you're just bored one evening and decided to let your frustrations out on a call center worker, you guessed it, you call me, your ISP. Despite my malcontent working there, I was a meticulous worker and always put the client above all else because it was important to me. I had done everything to make sure the customer actually has this very same popular issue. Spent well over 30 minutes over the phone with this guy with remote access to his computer. Other employees that talked to this guy already documented everything, but I had to make sure myself. Also because I work with some absolute imbeciles. This guy also talked with his infrastructure about this, which they sent a technician over to check it out that had replaced the router just in case, but to no avail. Then this big brain technician temporarily connected him to a different ISP and lo and behold everything worked perfectly fine. Connected back to us and the problem returned. Not the first customer they checked this issue with. So me, frustrated with this ordeal, apologetically put the customer on hold. With all of this information I went straight over to our shift manager who was hanging out with one of the seniors. It's a trained expert that you consult with. And it went like this. SM shift manager, S senior. Me, hey SM, hey S, look, this customer is calling back again about that same problem everyone keeps calling about. I have spent half an hour going through everything and he had a technician that verified when he connected him to a different ISP his problems went away and returned when connected back to us, proving we're the problem. S, without looking away from his phone, nothing we can do about it. Me, with an irritated voice, if we're not capable of dealing with the problem then I'm gonna tell this customer to cancel our service. S, sure, do it. With him still not bothering to look away from the phone, I looked at the SM beside him, looking for support, but he didn't say a single word. So, I complied, with permission from my senior and our shift manager as a witness. I put on my customer support voice, apologized for the hold and said loud enough for everyone to hear. Me, sorry, we can't fix our problem. You should cancel our services and connect to a different ISP until this problem is resolved so you won't have to suffer from it. Customer, clearly tired from this wait. Really? Nothing you can do? Me, yes, I'm sorry for this, I wish I could help you but there's nothing we can do about it. Customer, oh, okay then. Hangs up. Basically I just told a customer what the company would never want to happen. They religiously try to preserve customers even with empty promises. Cue to the next day. Who do I see first thing as I enter the office? The branch manager, BM, eager to talk to me. BM, OP, why did you tell a customer to cancel and that we can't fix a problem? Me, repeating the scenario to him. And I got permission from that lazy S with the SM keeping his mouth shut the whole time. Also we're really fed up about lying to the customers about it, and this was the only way for anyone to actually start listening to us about this neglected problem. It clearly worked because here we are. Remember when I said I work with absolute imbeciles? BM, well it's your job OP to report to the seniors or managers about this problem, and also I'm not aware of any problem currently going on. If there's something going on you have to tell us about it and not do these stunts. Me, with an "are you kidding me" face. What? How the hell do you not know of this problem? We've been all suffering from it for months now. We tell about it to everyone. All of the seniors and all shift managers know about this and you don't? Cue more horrible excuses. I just stopped listening to him midway and went on to my desk. This happened around 8 months back, and today, safe to say they're not the top ISP anymore. Waiting time went to average about 15 minutes, most experienced ones left. Management still clueless and they keep on piling up more junk services for you to waste more money on. Oh, and screw retail work. Sorry for the long post, I had to vent I guess. Thank you. Next. I just love this sub. I have a story of my own that I've been meaning to share for a while. I used to work IT tech support for a large company and it was my first proper job. As such I started as an apprentice. This story takes place about a year into my apprenticeship, so I still had much to learn. On this particular week, I was working the shift that started an hour earlier than everyone else, as in I was solely responsible for support before everyone else arrived at 9 AM. My manager sent me on a job quite a few miles south. It was going to take 2-ish days. On Monday, I informed my manager I'd be leaving Wednesday afternoon and coming back Friday afternoon and he'd need to cover my shift. It isn't my responsibility and I didn't need to say anything, but I thought I'd help him out by giving him a nudge. Me, Mike, not real name. I'm on earlies this week so someone will need to cover my shift Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Mike, cheers mate. It came to Wednesday and I suspected he hadn't arranged anything, so I thought I'd give him another nudge, genuinely trying to help the guy out. Me, Mike, just letting you know that my early shift will need covering for the rest of this week. Mike, alright you are, thanks pal. So off I went on the Wednesday thinking I was doing a great job and keeping everyone in the loop. We knocked the job out of the park and finished by Thursday evening, so I head to the hotel and enjoy some sweet expenses. Friday morning I head out in a rental they'd given me for the trip and start the journey back to head office. I get a call from my manager. Mike, where are you? Me, heading back. I've just set off. I'll be back in the. Mike, I don't see anything in your calendar. Me, I didn't put anything in it. I told. Mike, the finance director came in this morning and couldn't access the system and you were supposed to be here for 8 am. Me, I told you. Mike, speak to me when you get back. The finance director happens to be my boss. Not a dude you want to piss off. And he was pissed off. Turned out his network cable had somehow come loose, kicked, and couldn't access the network. He sat stewing from 7 AM expecting someone to arrive by 8 and fix it, only to have no one turn up until 8:45, the head of IT, my boss's boss, who took a fair few expletives on the chin. I arrived back at the office as planned, expected and informed. Friday afternoon, my manager calls me over and gives me a lecture on the importance of communication. I tell him, me, I told you Wednesday I'd be back Friday afternoon and my shift would need covering. He couldn't even look at me as he says the following in the most condescending manner possible, loud enough for the head of IT to hear. Mike, I don't know, jam and cream. I've got a pretty good memory and I do not recall that conversation. Then sends me to the head of IT who gives me a bit of a sterner lecture on the importance of communication. The word disappointed was mentioned. I go back to my desk defeated. My victory in the South, quashed and sullied. My manager finishes the barrage. Mike, next time, put it in the calendar and tell everyone in writing. The words ricocheted around my mind for a while until they settled and sat imprinted in my brain. I chalked this up to a learning experience and carried on. Fast forward a few months later, the words lay dormant, until a busily similar situation occurs. I was sent on a job for a few days and was returning, once again on a Friday afternoon, and it just so happened to fall in a week when I was doing the early shift. As soon as I heard about the job, the words sprang back into life. Put it in the calendar. Tell everyone in writing. Now I could have put the details of my trip into my personal calendar, but I thought, why not enter it in the IT department's shared calendar, which the head of IT is part of, and when telling everyone in writing, surely that means everyone involved the last time, the IT department, and of course, the finance director. So I send off an email to my manager with the IT department, and, just for fun, the finance director copied in something like, "Hi Mike, as you are already aware, I'll be working down south this week until Friday afternoon. I'm on the early shift, so this will need covering while I'm away." Some of my colleagues asked what that was about, and I informed them about my manager's memory issues. They smirk and continue working. I complete the job and arrive back Friday afternoon, exactly like before, and like before, the finance director came in early, and unbelievably, like before, he had issues getting onto the system. Choice expletives were shared, words were had, but not with me. I only knew shit had hit the fan when a colleague pulled me to one side and told me why Mike was in such a foul mood. In classic British style, he never said a word to me, and never has silence felt so vindicating.